Is my label backwards?
Hi,
Looks like it's
everybody.
backwards on mine.
Anti-government extremist. That's what it says. Oh, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, okay, no worries. My name is Paul Buiting, and welcome to this live hangout in which we're going to talk about the future of finance and probably a lot of other interesting things as well, with a focus, of course, on Bitcoin. We couldn't find a guest for today's show, so we just decided to pull some random people off the street, and guess what? They happen to know a lot about cryptocurrencies. No, I'm kidding, of course, because I couldn't be more excited about the amazing guests we have today. We have Bitcoin entrepreneur Roger Ver. He's an investor in gazillion startups. I advise you to check him out at rogerver.com. Hi, Roger.
Hi, everyone.
And we have Erik Voorhees. He is a Bitcoin evangelist, and he's the founder of Coinapult. And we also have Tuur Demeester, a free market economist, and of course we also have our co-host Joop Hartog. Welcome, guys.
Hey.
Hi.
So, before we are going to talk about the future of Bitcoin, crypto, and finance, let's first talk a bit about Satoshi Roundtable, which you guys attended last weekend in the Dominican Republic. Some observers made reference to the famous Jekyll Island meeting of 1910 that led to the creation of the destructive Federal Reserve, and some others likened it to the annual Bilderberg conference. So, Roger, how was the meeting and why all the secrecy?
There wasn't a bunch of secrecy. The meeting was fantastic. Basically, it was a bunch of Bitcoiners sitting around talking about Bitcoin, which goes on all over the world all the time. It just happened to be a lot of the Bitcoiners that have been involved in a big way from early on. And it was fun to get to see them all in a small setting where we weren't constantly interrupted with other distractions.
And were there any minutes or presentations made available?
I don't know. There weren't any secret, major secret plans or major announcements or anything like that. It was basically just a bunch of us spending a wonderful weekend together and talking about just how far Bitcoin's come in the last couple of years and how likely it is to go even farther in the coming years.
Roger wasn't invited to all the meetings with the secret plans.
All right.
So he doesn't. You'll have to forgive him. He doesn't know that they happened.
So there was even within the Satoshi Roundtable was an inner core of only like 5-6 people, and
yep.
Roger was just there to get drunk.
That's right. Yeah, there were secret circles and secret conferences going on, and actually most of the event was just a big diversion. The actual event happened over in Cuba, where some even more important Bitcoiners were, and so they had the real plans over there while everyone was distracted with Dominican Republic.
Very smart move. So, any things so what did you guys talk about? Any agreements or plans or resolutions for this year or next year?
The context was mostly social. A lot of us, I guess, have known each other now for 3 or 4 years, and we live all over the world, and we're all busy doing Bitcoin stuff, and we get to see each other once in a while at the normal Bitcoin conferences, but they are usually kind of jam-packed schedules and 1,000 people, and those are great, and it's really wonderful to see that the industry has grown so much. But this was wonderful in that we could just sort of hang out and relax and talk about this industry that we all love in a more casual setting. There were some seminars and presentations, many of which were great, but I think the real key was just kind of a different environment than what we normally get at the conferences.
Right. On the one hand, I understand. On the other hand, of course, Bitcoin is an open source protocol, and a lot of things take place in with full transparency, and presentations are made available online. And so I guess that's kind of sort of counter to meeting in a private place. But I understand you guys want to hang out with each other and talk about things in a more relaxed setting.
I want to say something to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, like, first of all, it just annoys me a little bit to, I mean, of course, it's great to share stuff, and it's great if everybody's invited everywhere, but I don't know, like, some of the bitterness that I heard on Twitter and elsewhere, like, about this meeting, like, kind of a sense of entitlement that some people have, like, oh, I'm supposed to, it's like, well, like, sometimes work to learn things, and but on the other hand, I mean, I think a lot of these things that are discussed everywhere, they're coming out anyway. And one thing to keep in mind as well is that sometimes and this is again like I completely agree with Roger and Erik. Like it's not that I haven't heard things that were majorly secret or anything, but like to say things in a public space is sometimes not always possible, and that has to do sometimes with the legal structure that we're in, like governments and like the ways people just will launch into lawsuits and those kind of things. Even like if you don't have any major secrets, it makes you be more on guard if you're in a public setting and there's cameras around, which actually was the case in Satoshi Roundtable. There were cameras. But like that, just as a side note, I think it's the same for a conference. If you want to go somewhere, well, then you save money and until you can pay the price. I think that's also the boon of Bitcoin. It's a currency that encourages saving, and not everything just comes to you just like that. Anyway, that's just a side note that I had to throw out there.
Right. So on a different note, for example, Erik, you are into Bitcoin for a few years now, just like Roger and some of the other guys. And is there like also, do you guys have a group, let's say in WhatsApp or Telegram, whatever, with some of the big holders of Bitcoin to talk in private about whether you guys want to buy or sell, or is there something like that going on as well, or not?
Not with me, not anything that I'm part of, but that's because I can never buy more Bitcoin because I'm already all maxed out.
Yes.
So I wouldn't be much use.
Yeah, I think a lot of the early Bitcoin people have absolutely no desire to sell any of their Bitcoins, myself included. Every time I wind up with more dollars, I just convert them into Bitcoins.
Yeah, so you guys don't have a stop loss or something. Let's say if the price goes below 50 or 40, like, okay, this is just going to cash out, no?
I don't.
No, if the price fell to 50, there's no reason not to just ride it all the way to the ground. I mean,
right.
the low price, like the low price right now, this is when it's wonderful to be able to buy. I just can't buy because I don't have any dollars.
That was the other meeting Erik was talking about, this will protection program, but not a lot of proud members of that.
What is that?
No, just joking around. Will protection program of some sort on Telegram or whatever. I don't know.
Something like that, yeah.
It's like all troll levels of talking about Bitcoin. Especially also what Tuur said, like a lot of people still like to troll on Bitcoin, you know. So if we have this Satoshi Roundtable event, then a lot of people will just jump on it because of, hey, there is an event and they are not invited.
Right. True. And so, what's the thinking in Bitcoin right now for 2015? Roger, Erik, what are the things you discussed with the other guys in Satoshi Roundtable? What are the expectations for Bitcoin for this year in terms of development?
I think you assume incorrectly that a lot of this stuff gets planned out in advance. This is a very open and diverse industry with lots of different competing interests, and so it's very much not like a bunch of people get together and set an agenda and try to figure out what to expect this year. It's more just, you know, find people that want to build projects with you and start building them. It's a very decentralized, you know, opposite of having a core mission. And that hurts sometimes, right? Because sometimes companies can do really well to the extent that they have a very clear mission and a clear brand, and they push forward with their goals. So Bitcoin doesn't get that benefit, but it gets the benefit of 1,000 people working in 1,000 different directions. But sometimes it's hard to understand that it works that way. Right,
but there's still a protocol that needs maintenance and updates and improvements. And of course, there's different opinion as to how the protocol needs to develop. Were there discussions about that too? For example, whether to increase block limits or block size, stuff like that?
Roger, you want to take that one?
Yeah, there was definitely some discussion of that, but my favorite part of the conference was the overall sentiment of everybody there that there's more reason to be bullish on Bitcoin today than at any point ever in the entire history of Bitcoin. It's just so clear. More than $500 million worth of VC capital is poured into Bitcoin at this point. There are startups probably in every single country in the world at this point. Maybe even some government agents in North Korea. Maybe they're even working on some Bitcoin stuff at this point. It's hard to know. But there's just so much happening everywhere that despite the price being down from where it was a few months ago, there's so much more reason to be bullish on Bitcoin today than at any point since the creation of Bitcoin.
What do you think, Roger, is the biggest opportunity for Bitcoin? Let's say this year or so.
It's like Erik said. There may a thousand flowers bloom. It's whatever anybody wants to do with it, and it's available to anyone and everyone to figure out what they want to do. Some of the things that are kind of interesting coming up are Storj, and then Factom is interesting, and I'm a big fan of Purse.io. I see that as a real good way to bring maybe 1 million or several million new users to Bitcoin, because it allows anybody to get 10, 20, even 30% discount on goods from Amazon. So there's just so many different things happening all over the place.
Yeah, I think this year will be the year of where the concept of remittances in Bitcoin went from being just an idea that we all knew would happen to this will be the year where it is happening. And that's because there are finally 3 or 4 excellent companies around the world that have focused on specific corridors, and they're up and running doing remittances now. So this includes like Rebit.ph, includes BitPesa, and a couple others. SendBitcoins.mx is another good one. So these, we all kind of knew that this was going to disrupt remittances, but it was just theory until some entrepreneurs actually got out there and built systems and executed on what was a good idea. So that's, I think, what the big story of this year will be. There's going to be many, many thousands of new users who aren't ideologically motivated. They don't care about central banks. They just realize that now they can send money to their family at a better price, and that's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, that's amazing. And for example, I live in Ecuador, and the government's introducing its new currency here, which is basically based on the dollar still, but it will be electronic for people to use on their feature phones even. I actually opened my wallet last week, so very soon I'll be able to pay in the taxi using my phone with the new digital dollar, basically. What do you think of these developments, and do you expect other countries to use those types of currencies as well?
Well, everyone's already using digital dollars. That's not anything new. When you use your credit card in a taxi, you're transferring digital dollars from the credit card company to the taxi company. It's all digital now. Doing it on a phone, is not much different either. I can today use my phone to use PayPal and pay someone in person. It's all digital dollars. I don't know how people got tricked into thinking that the dollars are something physical, and now that there's these like mobile phone payment systems, that's digital money. It's been digital money since computers were around.
Yeah, the difference is, of course, that as you know, most of the people in countries like Ecuador have no bank account, and they do everything with cash.
That's true.
And through this system, they can skip the whole bank account process because they open an account straight away with the central bank, basically using their feature phone, without having to provide documents, because it's all based on their identity number, and of course the government already has all the documents it needs. So you can bypass the banking system by using this system.
But how is it really bypassing the banking system? Because if the government knows who you are and you're just connected to the central bank, that's as connected to a banking system as
you're bypassing the commercial banking system.
You're only skipping the first layer of the banking system. That's what you're doing.
You bank directly with the central bank, which is quite unique, of course. Anyway, I wonder if it will be a success and whether other countries will copy it. But at least it's kind of a training session for people to start getting used to digital money or digital money, like using their phones, and from there it's possibly an easy step to Bitcoin.
What kind of rules are on that account? Like, are there limits you can send? Can you only send to certain people? Can you send it out of the country?
Yeah, it's for now relatively small, only small amounts, because people have not much money to spend anyway. The ones for which this is meant, and one of the issues, of course, is also that you can track it completely as a government, so all the expenses of the citizens are tracked instantly, which is quite scary.
Gives me the shivers.
Sorry?
I said it gives me the shivers to think of that.
Exactly. Yeah, so we have a question from Tim Pastor from the audience. Tuur, were there also any core developers present at the Satoshi Roundtable meeting?
There were, yeah, I think there was one. There were going to be 3 more from Blockstream, but they did not make it. So yeah, there was one core developer there, and then I mean obviously some more developers and entrepreneurs and people that were in various ways involved in the Bitcoin ecosystem.
I think the list is available for the people who are interested.
Yeah, you can just go to satoshiroundtable.com and look at the names.
Yeah, and talking a bit more about development of Bitcoin, Tuur, are you in favor of improving the block limit, the block size?
I'm undecided about that. Like, you mean to increase the amounts of transactions that can be included in every block?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm undecided about that. I mean, there's there's some advantages that could happen if you allow for that. But then again, it's always a trade-off, and keeping the block size limited actually should not be that much of a problem. It's just going to push Bitcoin more towards a store of value for the long term, and then we can have side chains or other coins in which transactions can happen more quickly and more cheaply, and then Bitcoin can serve as a value anchor for those transactions or those currencies in the same way as that gold often serves as a value anchor for the traditional financial system. But yeah, I know there are discussions about increasing that limit, and as of now the discussion is still ongoing. It's unclear whether it's going to happen or not, but I don't think it's going to change Bitcoin's future, whether it does or whether it doesn't.
How do you see that, Roger? Are you agreeing with Tuur there?
Yeah, maybe I have a slightly different take. I think it's pretty clear that the block size will have to be increased. And something I didn't realize until actually the event there at the Satoshi Roundtable is that apparently in the original Bitcoin protocol there was no block size limit. Blocks could be of any size, and it was only later that they implemented the 1 megabyte limit to prevent people from just spamming and bloating the blockchain. So I don't see any problem with increasing the block size limit, and I think that it's going to have to happen here. And the fact that we're even discussing this shows what a success Bitcoin is. And a few years ago, it was unimaginable. It was almost unimaginable for us to think that we were going to have to worry about there being so many Bitcoin transactions happening that they all couldn't fit in each block. And the fact that we're discussing it just shows that Bitcoin is on the right path.
And don't you fear for more centralization if people cannot easily run a full node anymore?
I think Moore's law will still be able to keep up at this point. So the blockchain's getting a little bit big, but for anybody who's willing to spend maybe $200 or something, you can do it. So yeah, or even less if you just buy the hard drive.
I think you don't need full decentralization of a system in order to get the vast benefits of decentralization. Not everyone needs to run a node for us to feel like it is sufficiently decentralized to prevent the problems of centralization. So as long as, and it's not like it costs $1,000 to run a node or something. It's just that you can't really run one on a phone or on an old laptop. But any kind of web server can easily do it. Any desktop PC can do it without any problems. And I expect that will continue. The block size will grow, and hardware and bandwidth will grow. Of all the things that could be, terrible futures for Bitcoin, I don't imagine that the problem will be one of not enough people running full nodes.
So what's the main challenge or risk you think, Erik, that Bitcoin has, or something that possibly keeps you up at night every now and then?
Well, it used to keep me up more. Basically, my biggest fear was, the governments can't stop Bitcoin, of course, but they can certainly do a lot of damage, and especially when it comes to PR and propaganda and rhetoric and all those things. So my concern, 2 or 3 years ago, was that governments would, as soon as they realized the potential of this, would come out vehemently against it and would start a campaign against it to win the minds of the people. And they haven't done that. Largely, I think it's because they don't really understand the existential threat that Bitcoin poses to their monetary power. But also, there's just a lot of hubris, and they don't quite realize that Bitcoin can do what some of us think it can do. So I think Bitcoin has grown now to a size where it would be a lot harder to destroy its reputation. I mean, it certainly damages its own reputation to a great degree, and it survives and grows even with all that happening. So so the concern I had before, I think, is mostly waylaid, but as always, I feel like the men with guns are the ones who can screw a good thing up for the rest of the people.
Right. So how do you see the whole Greece situation play out, Erik? And do you expect Bitcoin to profit from, or just to flourish as a result, like we saw with Cyprus, which led to a price spike and more adoption? What do you expect to happen with Greece, and how does it relate to Bitcoin?
Well, countries often go through these currency crises where they fall apart. And everyone is devastated, savings get devastated, the economy is destroyed for several years. And inevitably the government will come back with a new currency, a new value, and start the charade all over again. And so now there's actually an alternative that people can use. And so to what extent will people figure this out? I'm not sure, and it's just a question of time. There are not enough people using Bitcoin day to day in Greece that if the economy collapsed tomorrow, they would all switch to Bitcoin. But it will be there over the next years, and I think at the margins, more and more people are going to realize that there's a reliable monetary system outside of the hands of the banks and of the governments that they're all understandably growing to hate.
Right. How do you see that, Tuur? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I've been looking at the situation in Greece with regards to the Eurozone and the EU. The image that comes up for me is that of like a broken marriage, but there's no divorce yet. So like there's a lot of resentment, and one partner has a lot more resources than the other, and like Greece keeps like acting resentfully, and then Europe responds. And then in the end, they still kind of have some kind of compromise. But I think the trust is broken. I think there will be a breakup, and that of course Europe knows that this is going to be a blow for its reputation. Just like it's very scary for whatever two people who are married to actually go through the divorce, and it's very costly. I think that's why it's such a prolonged process. But I really think it's going to happen in the end, and we're going to see countries break away from the Eurozone, and it's going to hurt the euro. It's really going to be very painful for the euro, and it's going to be very destabilizing because a lot of Central European banks have very bad debt paper bonds from these Southern European countries, and once those go away from the euro, once they break away from the euro, these bonds are going to crash. And so there's going to be this ripple effect and a lot of volatility, and that's going to be just fantastic for Bitcoin.
But do you expect a situation where, let's say, the euro breaks down and countries have to start over again in a way with new currency systems, or possibly by using old systems like the guilder or the mark or the franc? Do you expect that on the ashes of a burned down euro system there is a chance for cryptocurrencies? Because if I look at national discussions, especially like in Holland, but also in Belgium, the UK, Canada even, a lot of people are talking about reforming the monetary system. They're talking about bringing back the printing press to the state, Chicago plan. These types of things are being discussed. In Holland, for example, 100,000 people have signed a petition to discuss monetary reform in the parliament and to consider the option of letting the government print money itself without having to use a central bank for that. So what do you expect? What will be the dynamics after a breakdown of the euro? Do you see Bitcoin, or maybe something else like a Chicago plan, or just an old-fashioned central bank?
I think it's too soon. I think it's too soon for countries to go to Bitcoin. I mean, not even 1%. In name any random country, not even 1% has adopted Bitcoin. So I think politicians usually try to look at their constituents or what the people want or consider as reasonable, and so maybe if you have a currency breakup in 5 years from now or a bit longer, maybe some countries would consider that, but I think the main takeaway is that we have a backup financial system that's really, I mean, the engine is getting bigger and bigger and stronger, and everything is getting more resilient. We have all these various solutions for people to be independent financially, and I think that's the main takeaway. Like, if we have a currency breakup, and no matter which country, people can switch to this global decentralized cryptocurrency system without much effort and stay connected and allow their customers to pay them from anywhere in the world. I think that's what's really important. And then, yeah, the politicians, they will follow, but as always, they're going to follow the market, and the market has to lead first. And that's why I think we need more adoption first before governments might follow.
I don't think that any country will ever adopt Bitcoin vis-a-vis the government mandating that it become the money. And this is because it is in no interest of any government to implement a cryptocurrency as their monetary system. Doing so would essentially be shooting themselves in the foot, and it would create a monetary system that they could not manipulate and that they could not inflate. And these are two of the most important powers that governments wield over people. So unless there was some very enlightened government somewhere that cared about the population, cared about protecting the population as opposed to protecting the government, I don't see that happening. The way it will happen is when individual people all over the world start using it on their own accord in a very decentralized way, and it just becomes the de facto currency of a country, not because it was mandated, but because it was used by all the people in the marketplace.
That's like to kind of connect with Erik is saying. Like, I think that's true. It's like, I mean, talking about the era of cryptocurrencies or whatever, or the era of private currencies. It's kind of similar as talking about the era or the age of atheism, for example. Like, our country is going to accept atheism. It's like, well, no, but the church is going to lose power over time, and the institution of the church is not going to go away, but people are going to care less over time. I think it's similar with these fiat currencies. People are going to care less, and governments are going to interact more and more with these cryptocurrencies, be it like buying them as reserve currency for their own foreign exchange reserves, or just accepting them as taxes and then switching them back to their own fiat value, fiat currencies. I mean, that's what I mean when I talk about countries accept or adopting to Bitcoin. Although I do think there is going to be some advantage in governments switching to Bitcoin entirely. If you look at, for example, the French Revolution, there was hyperinflation, and the country was in tatters. And the way that Napoleon gained power after the revolution was to pay the soldiers in silver currency, in genuine silver coins, and that's how he got the population behind him. So there can be a political reason for governments to accept it. That would be my argument.
Yeah, with a question here from a new human, maybe Roger, you can answer this. It's sort of in line of what we just discussed. Can you foresee a future where governments not only accept but embrace the transparency offered by Bitcoin blockchain technology? Clearly, government agencies have no difficulty tracing, seizing, and profiting from Bitcoin auctions.
I think we're going to see more and more privacy tools in the future, so I don't know if the transparency level of Bitcoin is going to continue to be as the level that it is currently. I think eventually people will be able to choose just how much transparency they want to have or how much privacy they want to have. So, and just to touch back on what Erik and Tuur were talking about previously, like if a country does start adopting Bitcoin, I think it's likely to be from the bottom up rather than the top down.
Yeah, and Erik, you were working on something like that in a small island, Dominica, I think, with your company Coinapult, where you wanted to give Bitcoin to thousands of people. Or I read something on CoinDesk. Can you elaborate on that?
Well, first of all, I'm not working with Coinapult anymore.
Okay.
Not since last year, but I'm still a co-owner, and so I have a little bit of idea what they're up to. That project actually recently just was canceled, and I'm not sure of all the details, but I think a large part was that when the government agents were being approached on that island to let them know that this was going to happen and to sort of get their stamp of approval, they were very welcoming and very happy to take some money, to examine the issue and consider it. And as soon as money was paid, then for some reason they got all cold and they didn't seem to care anymore about the actual project and just wouldn't answer calls or emails or anything anymore. So perhaps it was naive to think that anyone in a government office would actually help do something useful. But as of now, that project has been shelved.
Right. So because it sounds like a good plan to kind of airdrop coins to people, especially for small islands where they can easily start using it amongst themselves.
Yeah, it would certainly be a fascinating economic experiment to make it happen.
It's a bit like what Aurora Coin tried to do in Iceland. I wonder if that still exists, but
yeah, the problem is that they dropped a worthless coin. That everyone, you could have expected that the moment anyone who knows what they're doing gets one of those coins, they would have instantly just converted it into Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is going to maintain its power, its purchasing power better than that. So, but if you drop Bitcoin somewhere and get them used, that could actually work. But obviously, it's a very experimental undertaking. Hopefully, someone does it somewhere soon, because it would be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, so just in general, a lot of people, of course, that are not into Bitcoin yet, they complain about the Bitcoin 1% or the fact that Bitcoin is not distributed very evenly. To what extent is it more, could it work to have a different cryptocurrency that is airdropped on a sort of a more global, equal basis, so everyone can just profit from the start? Is that something that could possibly help the adoption of a new currency, or is that possibly also something that Bitcoin is currently struggling with, that there's a lot of resistance from non-users about the way the coins are distributed?
I think that the more important point is not that a money is distributed equally to everyone, but that it is distributed fairly. And the way I would define fair is that no person has some special privilege over any other person. And in any market, you're going to have people that are very poor and people that are very rich. And that shouldn't necessarily be a problem. The problem comes from when the people who are rich got that way through an illegitimate mechanism. And in the world we have today with fiat currency, many people are able to get rich because money is printed by a certain group of people, it is given to other certain groups of people, and those people benefit in an illegitimate manner from that system. So that's what people should be concerned with, not that there are some that are rich and some that are poor. Bitcoin equalizes people's ability to use it and access it and integrate with markets. It does not equalize what they do with their own talents and work and creativity. That will always be different, and there will always be rich and poor because of it.
But don't you think a lot of altcoins or monetary architects are working on new coins just for that reason, so they can assure a different or possibly fair? I'm just trying to think of the way they think. For example, the name Stellar is kind of a Ripple clone, but then the distribution is done in a different way.
But even if you distribute, like if all the Bitcoins today were created just today and distributed evenly to everyone that was interested, like 2 or 3 million people around the world all got an even amount of coins, fine. Then they start trading, and what's going to happen after a month or a year or 5 years? They're not all going to be even. Some of them will have made brilliant investments and gotten wealthy.
Yeah.
Some of them will have bankrupted themselves, and everything in between. So even if you start with some sort of equal distribution, as long as people are free to choose and free to act in the way that they feel is best, you're going to end up with inequality. The important point is not that people are equal. The important point is that they have the same rights and the same access to tools and the same ability to transact with each other without interference.
Right. And Roger, what are the cryptocurrency projects, or like maybe the altcoin or the cryptocurrency 2.0 projects that you're currently most interested in?
Bitcoin. Bitcoin has the biggest ecosystem. It has the most amount of infrastructure. It has the most exchanges. It has the most wallets. It has the most shopping sites. It has the most payment processors. It has the most everything. And because of that, it has the most utility. And because it has the most utility, it has the most value. And it looks like it's going to continue to be the case. There's probably at least 1,000, if not 10,000 developers working on Bitcoin for every one developer working on one of these altcoins. And I think that ratio is going to only expand in the future.
But every now and then, do you read a white paper of a different coin, or do you sometimes buy altcoins as well?
No, I've never bought any altcoins, but if something better than Bitcoin does come along that has better properties than Bitcoin, that's great. The whole world gets to benefit from that. I'm not opposed to it in any way, but at this point, Bitcoin really seems to be the cryptocurrency with the most to offer.
One interesting point on that is that a lot of the altcoins were created, I think, and don't really do anything interesting at all. They just tweak some rules. But there are now some coins that do things fundamentally differently than Bitcoin, like NewBits and BitUSD, which is based on BitShares, and Tether. All these things are digital tokens that track the value of a dollar, and they're designed to do that, and they have different ways of doing it, but they all do that. And so there's absolutely a reason to have Bitcoin on one hand, and then an asset that tracks some other thing like the dollar on the other hand. One of them provides much more stability in terms of value, and the other one has this huge network effect and developers working on it and all these things. So to the extent that there are coins that do something unique and that can find a niche, dark coin is more private than Bitcoin, and there is certainly a need for more privacy. So anything that has a certain niche and a certain ability to fill that, I think can coexist. But in terms of just raw money, I mean, Bitcoin blows away everything else.
So what do you think of Ripple then, Erik?
I mean, Ripple seems more like just a banking system. It seems more like kind of a sexier version of PayPal that is a little more distributed. And to their credit, I think they're doing a really good job setting up an interesting banking network, but it should be understood as a banking network, and so it will have all the problems and pitfalls of that. And we'll see. I mean, ultimately, I'm just glad that there isn't just one coin being worked on. I'm glad that people are experimenting with all this stuff. Most experiments fail, but if we weren't experimenting with things, then the industry wouldn't learn and grow. So I think it's a sign of a really healthy ecosystem, really fertile soil that all these different projects are sprouting up.
Yeah, it's still with Ripple. You have this trusted gateways, so you still have complete decentralization. But I'm wondering, how about the 2.0 stuff? Are you interested in that kind of stuff, like the counterparties, the NXTs, and coins like that? What's your take on that?
Yeah, NXT I like a lot, mainly because it has this asset exchange built into the blockchain, which is really cool. I mean, it basically does what Bitfunder or MPEX did before, but it's decentralized, so it's all done on the blockchain. And so companies or people can issue shares of things and raise money all in a decentralized manner, which is extremely important for regulatory reasons, but also important just for freedom and access and for funding things that wouldn't otherwise be funded if they had to go through certain censorships. So that's one reason I like NXT, and I think there's a lot of projects that I don't even understand enough to comment well on them.
Are you also 100% in Erik then, in Bitcoin, Erik, or do you have some altcoins?
I would say probably 99% in Bitcoin.
Like, Roger, are you interested in those 2.0 projects, or?
Yeah, I guess they just have to make them useful at this point, and there's so much going on that it's hard to keep up with it all at this point. But from the little bit that I've read about NXT and BitShares and some of this stuff, it looks interesting. But it'll take some time to develop it and make it easy for people like myself to use, to be honest. But the more things that people try, the better. And like Erik said, if people didn't experiment and try new things, the society would never move forward. So it's good that people are trying all these new things.
And Tuur, did you originally change your opinion on those counterparty and NXT because we talked about it a bit?
Did I change my opinion about it?
Well, you were also like looking at some of the 2.0 stuff a couple of months ago when we talked about it, and I was wondering, do you still have the same opinion? Do you have a preferable one yet, or what's your take?
Yeah, I'm still in the phase of doing research. In general, I think we're in an ecosystem of protocols, and you can compare that with languages, with programming languages, or even the English. I mean, like just the spoken languages. And usually, what tends to happen is that in a connected environment, we see a power law distribution. So, for example, in the world now, the more the world is interconnected, the more we have one language that's really dominant, which is English for the moment, and then, of course, Chinese and Arab, and then there's a few that are big as well, but from there, it goes down really quickly. And so you see the same in programming languages. Some languages are very, very dominant, and then there's a long tail of smaller languages. So I expect the same to happen for cryptocurrencies. But right now, if you look at the market capitalizations of these altcoins, they're very, very small. Like Roger said, the amount of developers involved is very limited compared to Bitcoin. So the jury's still out there. I really do think that there will be altcoins and 2.0 projects that fill niches that will really be used very intensely and will grow big. But I feel the most certain about Bitcoin because the protocols tend to be very sticky. It's once the development has started, and once there's a certain momentum, it's very hard to stop them.
Right.
And how do you look at that on a price level? I want to know, because that's very interesting. Because like if you want to get into one of these alt currencies, you have to get into it through Bitcoin or Ripple, and that's about like all the options you have, right? So first you have to buy Bitcoin as a new guy to go into like this altcoins. How does that? Do you see any matches between that in the Bitcoin price, or?
Oh, you mean that Bitcoin price might rise because people want to go in altcoins?
Well, no, but if you want to buy an altcoin directly from your dollars or your euros, you have most of the times with most altcoins you have to first buy Bitcoin.
Right.
So it's like the entry point for the entire market to get in.
Yes. I think, yeah, that's not likely to change a lot. Of course, I mean, if the ecosystem grows as a whole, we'll see more exchanges and we'll have dollar to altcoin exchanges too. But I think that's going to be largely true. Most of the liquidity is going to be expressed in Bitcoin. And so from that point of view, it makes sense to me, if you have an altcoin portfolio, is to express the value of it in Bitcoin and to really measure the performance of your altcoin portfolio in Bitcoins to see whether or not it's performing. And right now, I recommend people buy a small basket of altcoins. But I mean, I share Erik's and Roger's strategy in that I only have a very, very small percentage of my crypto assets in altcoins.
Right. Okay, guys. Before we wrap up, maybe a few more questions from the audience. Roger, do you see an important role for decentralized identification and reputation systems in the future of finance?
Pretty much everybody knows that when you have a monopoly, you get poor service and bad, high prices. And I don't see any reason why to think that wouldn't be the case with identification services. So, and even today in the free market, there's various credit rating agencies and things like that. So the more choices that consumers have, the better.
Yeah, especially for you, Roger, seeing your experience with being denied a visa in the States. If anyone would benefit from a proper decentralized identification system, it's you, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then, Tuur, a very important question for you. How long have you been growing that beard? Asked by Mr. Bitcoin from Holland, Martijn Wisma, who has a beard like this.
Well, I'm gonna give $5 in Bitcoin to anyone who can guess it to the day.
Okay, that's a very nice challenge. So everyone can tweet the number of days that Tuur has been growing his beard.
Yes, closing the bet at 24 hours.
Yeah, then maybe last question from the audience before we wrap up. Erik, for you then, any reaction to Siglowski's arguments? There is a tendency in computer land to seek technical solutions to political problems. We are terrible at predicting the social outcomes of technological innovation, asked Tim Ebbers.
Well, I think people are generally terrible at predicting outcomes of all types. This is why we probably shouldn't rely on a bunch of wise people sitting in a room to decide our fates for us. Ultimately, technology is going to be a messy process. Look at Bitcoin. Look how many problems Bitcoin has caused, how many hacks and losses and devastation it has caused to people, and yet still it grows and still it has become a net benefit to society because it brings freedom where there wasn't any before. Technological adoption is inherently volatile and disruptive. It will hurt people, but the goal is that anything that helps people be free of coercion, anything that helps people communicate or express themselves or live the life that they want to live without hurting other people is probably something worth pursuing. And ultimately, that's the most important reason to be involved in Bitcoin.
What's the freest place right now in the world to live, do you think?
I don't know. Not the United States, that's for sure.
Definitely not Europe either.
Yeah.
I would argue it's Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin is the freest place to live. You want to live in the cloud.
Yeah, the cloud. The cloud is the right place to live.
The internet's the freest place in the world. I agree.
Buy a jetpack and live in the cloud. Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. Is anything, any other things you want to discuss or questions you wanna address?
I think I'm good.
Roger.
For your friends that aren't philosophically interested in Bitcoin, show them Purse.io and how I just bought this new iPad Air 2 right here. I saved 29% by buying it with Bitcoin via Purse.io. So I saved almost $200 on this iPad by using Purse.io. So tell all your non-political, non-philosophically motivated friends about Purse.io and how they can save a fortune on anything they want shipped direct from Amazon.
I
Is
want
it
to second
only
that.
for U.S. citizens or for everyone?
Yes, sir.
For anyone anywhere in the world that has Amazon or where Amazon ships.
I want to second that. Yesterday I did my first purchase on Purse.io. The first purchase apparently only limits the reduction to 8%. So I did that. I ordered. It was very easy to set up. In 1 minute it was done. If you choose to have a reduction of below 10%, they give you Amazon Prime for free. So the bag that I ordered, the suitcase that I ordered, actually arrived today, and it was for 8% less than I would have paid otherwise. And the next item that I buy, they're going to give me 15% off. So I'm really excited about this. I wish I had started using it a lot sooner. Purse.io, and thanks, Roger, for recommending.
Awesome. Okay, so Roger, people should check Purse.io, and also they can go to rogerver.com to find out about all your startups and your life, right?
Right.
Perfect. And Erik, where can they find people you? Where can people find you?
My blog is moneyandstate.com, which I post to every so often. But Twitter is probably the best way to keep in touch, and that's just at Erik Voorhees, spelled like it is on my little name tag here.
Is it like Dutch? Do you have Dutch ancestors, or?
It is Dutch. Tuur, I think, thought I was Dutch when we first met, but unfortunately, I don't speak that language, and so it's Dutch in name only, I suppose.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks. And Tuur, you can be found on Twitter, right, at Tuur Demeester, and Yelp at BlockTrail. So thank you guys so much, and I really enjoyed having you in the show. And let's do it again one day.
Just some extra points, guys. We're going to have a university debate next week going on at the University of Leiden from the Innovation Center, and we from BlockTrail will be handing out free Bitcoins there. So if you're interested in the discussion, please join. It's findable on Facebook and on the university page, I think.
Perfect. For all Dutch students and people living in Holland. Great. Okay, thanks guys. See you next time.
Thank you. See you.
Thank you all.
Bye.